Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Pat Murray with the Trauma Research Foundation. Hope you enjoyed the film. I'm here with some of the subjects of the film. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe to the channel there. That way you can keep updated. It's the little red button right below the video. We keep updated with all the free stuff we put out. You'll be able to participate in our chats, submit questions that way. So without wasting any more time, we have J.C. Hall with us, who is the subject of the film. J.C., can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? My name is J.C. Hall. I'm a hip hop artist and therapist. I work as a social worker at a transfer high school in the South Bronx, Mott Haven. Still there. What you just saw was shot in 2014. And yeah, that's where I was blessed to meet these two beautiful souls. And I'm super psyched they're here with me because I think they could speak to this work in much more depth and sincerity than I could as participants. So I'm going to pass it off to Big. Big, tell us,
hello, everybody.
Who are you? There you go.
My name is Vianna Morrison. I'm an upcoming artist from the Bronx. I know you guys just seen my documentary, but life has gotten better. Still is. Still working on life.
And she's at work right now.
Yeah.
Grinding. Good for you, Big. E.
What's up, everybody? My name is Ephraim Weir. I'm from the Bronx. I still make music here and there. Got some more music coming out in like a week or two. And yeah, I'm still grinding and thriving as always. And I hope you guys enjoyed the film.
So I'm gonna get out of the way. You can see everybody's government names here. What's your artist names?
Well, my artist name is Ephraim Weir, HEFROMWHERE. It's a little wordplay with my name, my actual government name. So yeah, Ephraim Weir. That's my artist name.
My artist name is Bigger Bucks, BIGABUCKZ.
I would definitely encourage you to check their music out. And they got some stuff together in the works to be announced. That's exciting. So and yeah, my artist name is Phoenix, spelled FIENYX.
Cool. Yeah, I think we can find everybody online, which is great to follow through and see how they've evolved as artists and follow that journey. Good place to start, I think, is JC. How did you get involved in hip hop therapy? Like, what was your journey before we see you in the film?
Dr. Tyson, which I'm super psyched he made it in the film. I think that was a really beautiful moment that kind of got captured there. But yeah, hip hop for me has always been therapeutic as an artist, as someone engaging in the culture, as most people who participate in it would attest. It's been healing for the communities that birthed it since day one and continues to be. But I never knew that it could be incorporated into therapy. I had experiences in therapy myself that were not very great. I guess it would be the best way to put it. I wasn't necessarily understood or felt like I could really engage or I just didn't feel cared about or understood. I think I would speak in a way where I was kind of looked down upon, and it wasn't because hip hop and it's just not a normal thing in therapy. It's not a regular thing. A lot of practitioners don't have that kind of as any experience in that.
Can I jump in real quick? So
please.
As someone, who's in the culture, I think you understand the healing power of it. You've probably, anyone who's involved has heard hip hop saved my life, ad nauseum. But why does hip hop have that healing power? What about it? And not just, I want to hear everybody sort of learn this as well.
Should I let them go first? I'm curious what they're gonna say.
Let's see. Yeah, we don't.
Let's get it. Which one of you wants to go first? Why is hip hop healing?
It's healing because it's honestly based off what relates to you. To me, hip hop to me gives me like a rush. I don't know how to explain it, but it gives me a rush, like some type of something in my blood that just pumps me to keep going and helps me express my feelings in a different way. So like instead of me going in the streets and taking my anger out on the streets, I'd rather take my anger out using a pen and some paper, and it comes out better, you know? So yeah, and sometimes it spreads words. Other people can relate to it also, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
And then, damn, like she said almost everything I wanted to say.
Yeah, reformulate it. Yeah.
But you know, like hip hop is healing for me because, from my point of view, going back to what Biggie said, like once, like when I got introduced to it, I noticed that yeah, you could catch a rhythm to it. Yeah, you feel free and you feel good when you listen to music. Besides hip hop, you know, any type of music, you feel good. But then with hip hop is like, you know, that these people came from almost the similar places where I came from, because like hip hop was like started in the Bronx. That's number one. Then number two is like you hear these people going through their struggles and they saying it all in the rhythm, and it's like you catch this like drift in the song and you're like, wow, like this guy just said that. Oh wow, this guy just been through that. Wow, I just went through that. Like, you know, so it's like, damn, I just went through that yesterday and I didn't feel like I
Me
wanted
too.
to go through anything, you know, like I didn't want to go back outside. I didn't want to look at people in the face because of what I was going through. But then next, you know, you turn on some Nas, then you're like, oh my gosh, I feel better again.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one, you know?
Yeah, 20 years, I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and it's still, you can, you know, you were going through the same thing he was then. It's just like, it's a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's poetic. That's poetic. And I think that's the number one thing. Like it for me growing up and to this day, it makes you not feel so alone. I think hip hop music and lyricism at its best is exposing its soul in a very in-depth way, you know, to craft it's highly dense poetry. And it's a form of storytelling, right? So you can say so much more, in my personal biased opinion, in a rap song, literally just quantity of it. You're doing 3 verses rapid fire, and you can really say a lot in that. And yeah, just kind of that moment of where an MC says something that you've been through or you've thought that you've just thought no one else has ever experienced, and you felt extremely isolated around or ashamed of, and it's a very unifying moment. And I think the community involved in it as well. You know, it's one thing to kind of have that individual element where now you don't feel so alone, but it's also tying you into a larger culture and a community at large, an artistic community that, you know, especially if you're struggling with mental health, you know, it's marked by isolation and loneliness, and just having, you know, being able to go and relate with people on a very deep, sincere level, kind of regardless of what you look like, where you're from, because hip hop is global. I think it's a tremendously useful tool in healing inherently. I think that's just built within it.
Beyond just lyrical, like, so we've sort of been focused on lyrical, but there's also
Yeah.
the beat element, like, and maybe you can back this up with some science or some studies or something, but like, how does the beat affect that? Like, people are, part of hip hop is nodding your head, like as you're going around, like, is that regulating? Why is that regulating? Like, tell me what, you know, what science backs that up.
It's a great question. Hip hop is tremendously embodied. You know what I mean? It's like it's a movement. It's not just like hip is the knowledge, right? Hop is the movement, as KRS-One said. So you do have the lyricism and the more cognitive, heady stuff, but it's embedded within a rhythmic background. Even the words themselves, the language you're using, you're delivering in a rhythmic pattern, which is what flow is. It's an exchange of stressed and unstressed syllables. So you're telling a narrative and telling a story, all within the backdrop of a grounding, centering, repetitive, rhythmic beat. And that can be tremendously regulating and grounding in terms of speaking of your nervous system, which arguably might be what allows you to even explore some of those traumas on a track and kind of settle you enough to be able to really dive into some of those experiences and emotions. And so, yeah, that's definitely what I would argue. I appreciate that point.
Yeah. I want to get just like an update on how the program's going now. I know you mentioned that you still are working with the program. Has there been, what is the sort of the direction? Are they placing more obstacles in your way, or are they removing obstacles and you just have a wider breadth of like who you can connect with and help?
I would say as time has progressed, it's been very much show and prove, right? So, and I think when the results have spoken for themselves and continue to, so any potential obstacles or any, doubts, or I would say have gone by the wayside. And I think this is the synergy, right, between, because bringing therapy in an educational space, they're not always necessarily aligned, right? It can be difficult. You're kind of answering to education first and foremost when therapy would be much broader. But I think that Mott Haven community, the high school I'm in, the administration, teachers are incredible. And I think we built a certain level of synergy where they respect and understand like that's not their lane and it's mine, and like go ahead and in the same way that I respect that education is not my lane. So I think it's this symbiotic relationship where we're kind of pushing each other, because education is important. I'm not trying to push that to the wayside, especially for teens, and the correlations between graduating high school and not graduating, and the correlations with ending up justice involved, and all sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm sure you would probably argue it's reciprocal too. Like the more people you can reach, the better they can do in those classes, and it's
100%.
I'd like to get just an opinion from Ephraim and Biggie. So when you found out you were going to be able to be eligible for this program, or that your school was getting this program, sort of like, what was your first reaction? Were you like, all right, let's go? Like, or was it like, is this going to be corny? Like, what is like?
No, I was actually excited about it, but then I was still in a shell where, like, I was shy. So JC actually helped build my confidence within everything that I did. So yeah.
Well, for me, like before I went to the school that I graduated from, which was Mott Haven, was like I was going through a whole rough path and stuff like that. So I was already like trying to like find positivity routes to go. So I ended up doing like a couple of like open mics. I was like, you know what? I like writing poetry and stuff like that. So let me go out there and like express myself. It took me a long time to even try to do that. I feel like 100 times. And then when I came to that school, the first like year I came to that school, that's when the program was introduced to me. And then the way that it even went, I remember that day like it was yesterday. Like they introduced JC, and then JC's like waving or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm starting this. I'm starting this therapy thing. And I'm looking at him like, this is my time to like, I do poetry. So I know like if he's a real hip hop guy, like he will accept me. And that's how I was like, all right, let me go walk over there and introduce myself. So I was like, this could be good for me and him at the same time. And that's
you remember the first time we sat down for a one-on-one?
Yeah.
And you definitely tell him like your initial thoughts, your initial kind of like I don't know if I can trust this dude.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, like nobody was really like into the program like that because like, anyways, forget that. Yeah, I was sitting down with him, and next you know, like I'm telling him like, yeah, I'm a little poet or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, like I like your poems, like they cool or whatever, but we could I could turn you into a rapper. I'm like, I'm only how old? I was like 16 or 15. I'm like, at that time it was just like Lil Wayne and these weirdos, like gangster rappers and stuff or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, if I'm a rapper, like I gotta be a gangster, like, and I don't want to be rapping about stuff I'm not really doing. So I'm looking at him like I'm not a rapper. He's like, nah, but we could get you on the beat. We could do this. And I'm looking at him like, nah, like it took a lot for me to even show him my poems. You know? So it's like for me to open up my vulnerability to you. Now you're telling me to be someone that I didn't think I could be, you know?
Yeah, I remember you telling me like when you first finally showed me some poetry you were working with, it all rhymed. Like it was all raps. You wrote raps, you know? So I remember saying to you, like, yo, it seems like you're writing rap. We're talking, we're building about rap. Like you might be interested in that. I could help you structure it, just show you a little format. And you kind of side-eyed me. You were a little like, you thought, I think, and we discussed this. You thought I was trying to like turn you into something, you know, you weren't.
Yeah.
And but what I think is beautiful about that story is like the way it evolved, you know, like there was no intention behind it. Like if you stuck with poetry, you stuck with poetry. Like it was I was just kind of like, if this is what you want to try, let's try it. And then you were like trusting enough to finally be like, you know what, let me give this dude a shot and see what he's even talking about. And then I remember also telling you like a rapper's what you make it, bro. Like I rap, I'm not a gangster. Like a rapper's what you make it, you know, and drawing those parallels and saying it's just highly structured poetry. And I remember at first you were mad skeptical, but you kind of slowly over the course of like a week or two, you know what I mean? And this was just when the program was starting, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you kind of opened up and finally came to one of the groups. So yeah, that was cool. But also I understood why you would be skeptical for various reasons. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's that I didn't look like you, I didn't come from where you come from. I'm technically the therapist. You know what I'm saying? I'm in this position of power in a school that can affect the outcome of your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course you're going to be skeptical.
Yeah.
The way that, you know, JC connected with both you guys, did that really aid your ability to open up? I know we see it in the film with Big, like sort of just not being able to show your softer side and all that. Was him being the specific person he is, you know, the key to making this work? Or is this sort of, was it the therapy, the program?
No, it's I think it's him. Like, you know, it's his energy. It's just everything about him. I don't really look at him as a therapist. I look at him more as like a brother, a big brother, you know? So
Yeah.
That's love, Big.
yeah, I don't really look at him as a therapist. I could go to him about anything, like a best friend. Like I could text him about anything.
Do you feel like the program, and yeah, I'll let you weigh in, I'm sorry. Do you think the program would have worked if that was not the case, or would it just been like, all right, this is like a corny after school program?
To be honest, it would work because nowadays everybody likes music, but then it wouldn't be any meaning of it, you know?
Yeah.
So it really takes a lot to do that. You know, he just made, to me, he made me comfortable with him. So I was able to open up about anything and everything with him. So
Yeah. Ephraim, where you want to weigh in?
I mean, I encourage anybody to start their own program for like hip hop therapy, but JC approached it differently. Like,
yeah.
That's kind of what I'm getting
He
at.
got it.
I think there's so many districts and places that could really benefit from something like this, but like, how do you implement it if you don't have the guy? Like, if you don't have that person who JC lives and breathes this stuff, like, can it work without that person?
yeah.
I think it takes like passion. Like I think music has to be a passion. Like you got to have an ear, because it's not only like, you know, talking, but it's more about being honest. And, you know, like if I was to write something and it didn't really make sense, or, you know, he would come to me like, all right, Big, like, you know, maybe you could put it a different way. Or so it takes a lot of, you know, honesty and feedback. And like, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, definitely have to be musically inclined to start one of these.
Yeah. And JC, maybe this one's geared at you. Like, what could somebody who's maybe not in this after school setting, how could they sort of implement it? Like if they're having trouble connecting with somebody and they know that person is into hip hop, because we have a lot of people, you know, who visit our foundation, who are therapists, who are, you know, working with people in different modalities. And like, let's say they find out somebody's passionate about this. How can they implement it maybe if they're not in that world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And I guess I want to start off by saying there's levels, you know what I mean? Like, I think and before even getting into that, yeah, I just want to thank both of you, E and Big. I think it really speaks to the power of the relationship in a therapeutic exchange, right? Like, really what I heard both of you just say is like, if you didn't mess with me as a person, this wouldn't work. And that's what like studies have been pointing to for decades about what in therapy exactly in that exchange is working. I think so. That's a huge piece, which is honestly the fundamental piece. I think entering in a space of curiosity and trying to learn from y'all. Like, what do you like? What do you want to do? You know, that's really that anyone can do that. You don't need to be a hip hop artist to do that. There's levels though, right? Like you can just start with playing music and discussing lyrics and having youth show you what they're listening to, what they like, what it means to them. Why does it resonate or not? Encourage them to write some of their own stuff. You know what I mean? And bringing that into, I think just creating a space where it's acceptable and it's not taboo or necessarily an uncomfortable thing. It's gonna, if you're not like native to hip hop or didn't grow up on it or participate in it, it's going to be uncomfortable, but a lot of our job is uncomfortable. It's about sitting with that discomfort. You know what I mean? In general, the stories you're hearing and, you know, things we've never experienced, you know what I mean? Everyone's got a unique experience, and we're, you know, no matter what, whether we're talking about hip hop or just something someone's been through, there's going to be discomfort, and it's approaching it the same way of just trying to understand. That's like the basics. You know what I'm saying? I mean, then like if you're also an artist, and then also an engineer and a producer, like there's levels in order to get to this, to have like a studio program, but you don't need all that in order to engage in hip hop therapy as envisioned and pioneered by Tyson. The first start was having a conversation about songs and addressing lyrics, and then creating space for you to write and rap out loud, even without all of the big budget and the equipment to now record it and put on a showcase. So there's avenues in where, you know, even if you're not native to the culture or it's something you don't necessarily know much about, that's fine. That's normal. There's a lot about hip hop culture I do not know, that I've never lived. It's constantly evolving. The youth are constantly putting me onto artists that I've never heard, sounds, certain things they're trying to do that I'm not familiar with, but you just remain teachable. That's really it. But I think that applies to every aspect of being a therapist. So I don't think it should be too much of a stretch. It's just kind of get in where you fit in, what level of comfort you're at. If you're not an artist, then don't, you know,
Don't force it, don't fake it.
Yeah, 100%. Just be authentic and upfront about it. And primarily, like, it's about them and what they want to do, and just trying to help facilitate that and engage in those conversations. Because that's another beautiful thing about rap music. It addresses very taboo things, especially in adolescence during this time of identity formation. They're figuring out who they are. They're grappling and having these really deep, intense conversations about racism, sexism, homophobia. They're having these convos without professionals, you know what I mean? Like, and rap is a great tool to really address some of these issues, these things that are in it, very, very, whether it's explicit or whatever, like it's a great way to engage youth in these conversations that they're having anyways. You know, it would be useful to be able to have some kind of professional sounding board. You know what I mean?
And I think what you're saying is just applicable across the board. Just like meet people where they're at. Like
100%.
You can apply this to country music. You can apply this to whatever. Like if you're in a, you know, it's global. It's just like use the culture to feel, you know, like just make the culture responsive.
100%.
I want to get into a question about the performance night that we, just a quick fire back, and I want to finish the question, but do you do that every year, the big performance?
Yeah, it's at least once a year.
So I want to know, and I want to hear from everybody, like how important is that sort of like coming out party to the program? Like, does it, because it seems like you're just working in the lab, doing this, it's between you and JC and the other people there. But then like, once you go out into the wilder world, like, does that validate all that? Does it not? Does it, like, what is your experience on that night? And what is your experience after?
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm gonna sit back.
Go ahead, E. Go ahead.
I mean, can you repeat the question? Like,
Like, what was it like doing the show? Like it's one thing when it's just us, we're chilling, we're in a small group, but now you've taken it onto a stage. What was that like for you to kind of be on a stage and present and do your art in front of a crowd?
Did that have to happen to feel complete, or was that just like a cherry?
No, it actually, to me, it completes me because then it shows me my progress, like, you know, because it all starts from being in the studio. But then what about when it's time to get on stage and show everybody what you're capable of doing? So yeah, it's kind of like a test. So I kind of feel more accomplished when I do stuff like that. Cause like I said, like I didn't have any confidence. I was really dull. So me doing that and the aftermath of that really made me feel good. And it made me feel like, you know, I could do more. It pushed me to do more with music.
Yeah. Well, my experience with performing, like I said before I met JC, I tried to perform and it didn't really work out. And I was just doing spoken word at the time. And then when I started doing music and performing, like I felt the different energy shift within my body. Like I felt connected to the crowd. I felt like a out of body experience to where like I was on like automatic. Like I just turn on the switch and I was just going, and to just go felt like a relief at the same time. Like, you know, so it felt way better to perform. Like Biggie said, it's like a test. It's like you show what you've been working on for a year or a couple of months, you know?
Yeah.
And show everybody what you've been going to the studio for. Like, why is E and Big always going to that room? Why is they like, you know, and then you come out and then you just go boom and show them, oh, that's what he was doing.
And then what is like the experience, like what sort of feedback, like is it all love? Like what is your feedback generally?
Yeah, like I said, like I feel the energy from the crowd. So I mean, not everybody's gonna give you love. To be honest, as a performer, like the love that you feel, the people that's engaged with you while you performing, that's all the love you need. Like even if you love, you still performing and you find the love within yourself to show what you create, you know.
Definitely. But feedback there's nothing wrong with feedback. I'm open to some feedback. You know, I'm open to some feedback.
Do you remember on the train, Big, you were heading home and Dr. Tyson came and saw the show, and on the train, he said something to you. I remember he told me later when we were doing that interview, he was like, yo, I met Big on the train right after the show. And I was like, yo, you killed it. You know, do you remember that? Like even just a random person you don't know, you never met.
It made me feel so good. It happened to me plenty of times. And that to this day, that's what pushes me to even continue my music. You know, other than me trying to express my feelings, but you know, people push me to continue my music because they relate and they like it, they love it.
100%. I think it's super validating. I think it's a moment where, like you said, it's show and prove. Like y'all got to show what you've been working on all year. And in a way where I think a lot of the teachers and staff, they don't know half of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes in your personal lives. And I think it's a form of social advocacy or social action, because it's a moment where you're showing staff, people who have a lot of control over your lives in that situation, what's really going on behind the scenes, but also exposing it in not in like a wag your finger type thing, like in an enjoyable, mutually enjoyable environment. And it gives, I think, teachers or the other staff a very new perspective into who you are as not just students, but full humans. You know what I mean?
And JC, for you, so just seeing your little interactions with Dr. Tyson, hip hop therapy is not, you know, it's not this breakthrough therapy that's caught fire all over the country. You know, like, was this performance very validating for you and him? Like, okay, this is real now. Like, proves the thesis. Like, there's one thing about, you know, like looking at data and seeing like, okay, this works, but like, this seems like sort of the embodiment. That event in particular seemed like the embodiment of all of it, like a culmination of all of that. Is that, from an outsider perspective, is that how you experienced it?
Yeah, man. I mean, I would say that whole event in general was a very show improve moment for the program in and of itself. Like that was during a very like tumultuous time, and like a lot was going on, and it was kind of like, all right, there's these healing benefits, this and that. It's like, all right, well, now one of the founding members has been stabbed and killed. You know what I mean? And like, what is this gonna do? It's kind of like where the rubber met the road, but also showing improving for the program, like advocating for not censoring and advocating for bigger space. And, like you got to really show and prove to earn that stuff. And so if the show didn't go off as kind of hoped, and, it would have had, I think, real world implications for the program itself, but even more so, like you said, in terms of it's serving as an example of a lot of what Tyson built and had been dreaming and imagining and getting like shunned and like frowned upon for doing, coming to fruition on a much more macro scale, where it's like, oh, wow, like this isn't, this really can happen in a very specific instance, specific place for a specific reason to address a specific event. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could see on his face when he's talking, like, this is what he'd been building to. Like and you feel that watching the film. It's very, very powerful. You said, like, you mentioned the other staff at the school. Like, did they sort of like open up after this? At what point did sort of the administrator, you mentioned like, oh, you can't be explicit, or I forget how you worded it, but like, what pushback were they maybe giving you prior to this event or the program that maybe they backed away from after they've seen how effective it is?
I think in general, when the perception of therapy, right, is that it's supposed to be painful all the time, or that if you walk by the counselor's office and they're jumping around and laughing and moving and engaging, they're not doing real work. It's like a little club. It's not a serious, you know what I mean? And there's this general perception of therapy to where I think, in an educational setting, it could be like, all right, that's cool, but I need them to be passing their classes. Like they could be doing better in the class. So I think it's a very fine line to balance, where my experience in educational settings, luckily not so much in Mott Haven, which has been incredible, but in other educational systems, it was kind of like, yeah, that's cool, but that's garnish. That's like, toppings. Like at the end of the day, they're here to get their diploma. So can you stop spending so much time with them and, with this rap stuff, and like get them to do real work? There wasn't an understanding of the translation that in working through personal stuff, right, and developing certain social and emotional skills through this approach, that was going to directly correlate into academic achievement. But when you see that unfold before you, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, these were kids who were slipping through the cracks, by all means, we're on track to fail out. All of a sudden now, like Ephraim, you had a 29% attendance rate before we started working together. And then by the end, it was 92. You know what I mean? Like that's when you start seeing tangible results like that for educators. It's kind of like, oh, okay. And not just educators. I don't mean to like to isolate them. I think it's a general misconception about therapy in general. If you're moving around and dancing and bopping and rapping and singing, you can't be doing real work. That's kind of this general stigma associated with it.
Can we get some? I want to get both of you guys to weigh in on that. And you don't have to pull any punches here. Do you think the program, I don't know if you were, JC mentioned the attendance with Ephraim, but do you guys feel like this has helped you in other aspects of school, anywhere at school, and in what ways?
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna tell the honest truth. I hated school. I did not want to go to school, and ever since JC got me into the program, I was actually looking forward to staying after school, getting some tracks down, everything. So yeah, it definitely did help me and motivate me to come to school. That's the only reason. I wish I could just stay in the studio for all 8 periods.
You have to be a full day to be able to be eligible for the program.
Yeah. It's after school, so yeah.
I felt the same way, because then I was like, all right, because like he said, like in the beginning, it was like it was cool and all to like everybody was getting together after school. Because when the program first started, people would just come in just to listen to music and even be nosy onto the people that really wanted to record, and it just looked like a party after school. So basically, that was regulated to where like, yeah, like what is all these kids doing in this room right now? To where like, oh, these kids have to be passing in classes. Once I heard that, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely coming to school early, passing my classes, because I knew everybody wasn't gonna do it. I knew out of that
Mhm.
big party, it was gonna be like 5 to 10 people out of
Yeah.
that was gonna really focus on school and focus on they and pass, come back to the program. So yeah.
And that's that symbiotic relationship, I think, right? Where they fed each other. The studio was feeding the education and and vice versa. But we also got to shout out Royce, right? Like speaking from an educator standpoint, the way she was able to take and articulate it as an English teacher, turn a lot of what we were doing in terms of working on bars and lyrics, incorporate that into her classroom to help with the regents. And you know what I mean? Like there was I think that's a beautiful example of working like hand in glove. You know what I mean? Where now the hip hop is being brought as well into the classroom, and vice versa, and us kind of being able to feed off each other. And then in terms of the showcases, you know, she was tremendous in that because I wasn't, she's done tons of like dancing and all kinds of stuff in her past, a lot more show experience than I did. And like the scene you see, I think where you got big with, we had like a door made, a fake like stoop, the lights with E's part, the colored lights and the table. You were out at a nightclub and spinning Destiny around, you know, like really making it a show, not just kind of like sitting up and like kind of quietly, you know, that brings a whole new element out of it, you know, and she brought all that to the table. And that's the beauty of the collaborative spirit, right? Like educator and therapist in a school really coming together to try to push it all forward.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking that too about like even when it comes to music, like certain songs had different vocabulary words, like and stuff like that. So I was like, if I want to be a rapper, I gotta, you know, my intelligence. So I need to go sit in class and vocabulary. So
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think Dr. Tyson really underlined it too when he said just like that was professional. That like I think told the whole thing that drove it all home. I want to ask you sort of, we see sort of a journey for you, like opening up and being vulnerable. Do you find it easier these days when you're writing and producing your music to just be
Yeah,
open? Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I don't know how to be in my shell anymore, to be honest. Like, yeah, thank you, JC.
That's all you, big. I love it.
I don't know how to be. That's funny.
And I don't
I
know if
thought
we didn't really see the exact same journey with you, Ethan, but do you have any hesitancy, or you just put it all on the page?
say it again.
You just put it all on the page these days? Is there any sort of holding back? What is your process when you're writing?
When I'm writing, honestly, yeah, like sometimes I just go around my friends and I just play beats and I just be like, all right, we freestyling, like just like you said, like I just let it all out. Sometimes like sometimes I hold myself back from letting it all out because I'm just like I said, if I go with my friends, I'm just having fun and I'm just rapping, we all rapping together. But sometimes I hold back because I don't want to say something too good, and I'm like, nah, that could go in a song. So I I literally come in my own space, and then I just play a beat or whatever, something really like recording, and I just let everything go and stuff like that.
JC, I want to ask you about the program. How many schools would you say you have a similar program? Is it growing? What is the process like for maybe schools that want to take something like this on? Do you know anything about that?
That's a really good question. I think when I first started, I was a bit more idealistic. I thought it would kind of catch like wildfire. There's no other similar programs going on like this specifically that I know of. Like ideally in my mind, it would be you would have something like this available in most, if not all high schools, inner city, but also rural. It's a tool to engage, from young to old,
Globally, I mean, it's
yeah,
everything.
yeah, 100%. So that's the goal, that's the dream. And and it kind of was the hope with the recording of the documentary, was that people could see it and really see like this isn't just a catchphrase, or that this is for real. The work is really being done and it can be done and you can do it too. Because yeah, when I first was deciding to go the therapy route, the clinical social work route, I didn't really feel like hip hop was welcome in that space. And then I randomly stumbled on Dr. Tyson's work. And so I wouldn't be where I'm at today had I never even had the seed planted that something like this was possible. So the hope with something like this is the more people see it, the more minds will hopefully get sparked to be like, yo, let me do this. And not just in schools, like in prisons, community mental health centers, like all over.
Yeah, yeah, and I think hip hop has a sort of a bad connotation in a lot of the broader American culture that is probably not helping that. But
Yeah.
I think it's, if you're in it, it's the complete opposite. There's very little of what is put on those, scare tactic sort of how people are presenting it. Um, yeah, I agree with you. It's a shame that it's not in more schools. Is it cost prohibitive for like a school? And we don't have to get to in the weeds about specifics, but like if a school wanted to take on a program like this, it's probably not any. It's probably a fraction of the cost of any sort of sports program. It's probably, or they already have 75% of the equipment for the music program to begin with. Like how easy would it be for a school to adopt this?
I mean, you could get something started with a couple grand. Like you could, like when we first, it was just kind of on my own personal laptop and like a headphone mic. Like you can record on your, what I mean, phone right here, voice memos. BandLab is a free resource available online that people can use. So if you have a computer, to get it to like a professional studio, then you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. But if someone's not there who even knows how to operate that equipment, what's the point? So there's you can do it for, and there's also a lot of benefit for going all the way, because it also shows like, this is how much I think what you're doing is important. Like 30 grand worth of equipment. That's how, it's a reflection of the value you're putting on this form of cultural expression that these youth are wanting to present. So I don't mean to like sell it short, but you can also do it with, for free.
Yeah. We're just about out of time, but I do want to give everybody the opportunity, just like leave us with something you hope people take away from watching the film. Like what do you think people should walk away like knowing or feeling or passing on? Whoever wants to jump in there first, go for it.
You want to go, Eve?
I go. Well, I want everybody to take away from this is like, just know that there's different ways you could express yourself, different ways to be, just to like put your emotions out there. Like you don't have to just talk. You could talk to a friend, you could talk to a paper, you could talk to yourself, and you're not alone. That's what I want to just let everybody know and walk away.
I could agree with E. Also, on my perspective, the pen and paper is always better and more trustworthy. I guess it keeps everything confidential between yourself. And like E said, you can relate to everything and everybody, and you can always push yourself. Don't let nobody tell you can't do nothing that you can't do. You know, you could do anything that you want to do as long as you put your mind to it. Yeah, there's no need to be in your shell because people's always in a worse, you know, predicament than you. So you just gotta give thanks for whatever you got, whatever you're going through, and just keep pushing. Keep pushing.
Thank you.
Mm.
Jason.
That's deep. I don't.
Don't judge a book
go-
by its
Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. That's not
Wait,
something pretty.
that was literally what I was just gonna say.
You gotta think
Wait.
of something.
Yeah. What you mean by that, E?
meaning, like, for example, if I would have judged JC on the whole hip hop therapy, like, oh, this guy don't know music. He's white. Why would I listen to him?
Mm.
Number one. Number
Mhm.
two, with, for example, with me, oh, I'm not a rapper. I'm a poet. At the end of the day, I am a rapper. Rap is rhythm and poetry. Number three, I don't like hip hop because Tupac is in it. Tupac is aggressive.
Yeah, too violent. Yeah.
Are artists for what one artist for what it is.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my answer, man. You killed that. Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. Like what things that are supposed to separate us or that we're taught from a young age should separate us, or that like the color of our skin, our socioeconomic status. That doesn't, like, when it comes down to this pure, genuine like connection with someone, there's a lot more underneath that supersedes that. And I think that the work speaks for itself. You know what I mean? Like it because in it, you know, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to connect, I think, in the way that we did and be able to maintain a relationship the way we do long after. That film was 7 years ago, you know?
Yeah, always draw a bigger circle.
Word.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation.